Any speakers, I'll get a list on that for the citizen comment. We ask that you give your name, address, and if you live in Farmville, but if you are a presenter of one of our special presentations, your name and address will be fine. This is our first meeting of August. Our second meeting will take place the last Monday in the month due to Labor Day, so there will be 2 meetings for the town of Farmville. The record will reflect that all members of the board are present, as the town manager, town clerk, and the town attorney. With that being said, I'm going to call on Paul Ellis and ask you all to rise with me, please. And Paul, if you'll deliver invocation, and after that, I'll ask Brenda to lead us in the pledge.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you giving thanks for all the blessings you have given each of us. We thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to live in our fine town. But most of all, we thank you for sending your Son so that we might have everlasting life. Bless those that are sick and suffering, those that have lost friends and family. We ask that you be especially close to them at their time of need. Now, as we enter the time to attend to the affairs of our town, we ask that you bless our elected officials to make decisions that are good for all. We ask that each word spoken and action taken be pleasing in your sight. It is in your Son's name that we humbly pray. Amen.
Amen.
Brenda?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Were there any citizen presentations, Amy? Okay, we'll go past that. Town manager's comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the board, just have a few very quick things. Shared this with you by email last week, but for the benefit of the public, I just wanted to restate that we're very fortunate in Farmville to have received or gotten word that the state last week announced award of $789.4 million in water and wastewater infrastructure funding, and that is going to fund 385 projects statewide. There were 700 applications for funding for up to if they had funded everything, which of course they didn't, it would have been $3.1 billion. Farmville was in rare company in that we got 3 grants. We may be the only one that got 3 grants. I'm not sure which knows or not, but we got $2,454,000 to replace galvanized water lines in town, relining the old cast iron water line from Main Street elevated tank to May Boulevard. We got $4,431,000 grant to relocate the Middle Swamp sewer outfall from Johnson Field Sewer Pump Station to US 258. And that's been a project we've been trying to fund for several years. And also got $3,580,000 grant to replace the sewer lines, services, and rehabilitate the sewer pump station within the Farmville Housing Authority. So this is really big deal. Most of the funding came from American Rescue Plan funds. There were also some other funds cobbled from the state budget. So very pleased that we got that. And thank you, McDavid and Rich Moore for spearheading that effort. Very successful. I want to also report that tomorrow is National Night Out in Farmville. It's always the first Tuesday in August, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the field directly across Walnut Street from the town hall. We've got food, fun, games, everything is free. Hope you can all come out. Hope the weather cooperates. Last year it was rained out, so and the year before I think COVID took its toll, so it's been several years since we've had this. So we'll have the fire department, police department, EMS there as well. And then the next Thursday in the park, music and event at the May Museum is Thursday, August 18th, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. on the grounds of the May Museum. Last event was perhaps, I think Michael said that it was the largest attendance they'd had, and hopefully this next one will be bigger and better than ever. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions, town manager? Seeing none, we'll move on to the financial report. You have the report in your book. Any questions, comments, anything of Amy on the financial report? Anybody? Seeing none. Changes, additions, and deletions to the agenda. Are there any? Seeing none, is there a motion we accept the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion we accept the agenda as presented.
Board, you've heard the motion by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will proceed. Special presentation now is the first one from the Pitt County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Phil, if you want to come on up, while you do that, I'll explain how it's going to work. Once Phil gives his report, we'll go to David for anything that he would like to add to it. After David adds anything to it, we'll come to the board for questions, starting with Brenda on the left, okay? That way we can get this thing expedited pretty quick, because I'm excited about this report. Phil, come on in, make yourself home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Will this all be on the slide?
Yes.
Okay. I guess that's what they call it.
Thank you.
Gallery, can you see okay? Can everybody see okay? We good? Okay.
Yeah, you can take the attorneys, we'll share.
Not a problem.
Appreciate y'all's time. I'm Phil Gary with NCDOT's Transportation Planning Division, and I'm just here to talk about our Pitt County Comprehensive Transportation Plan we've been working on the past year and a half or so. So you're our first town. We're going to go to all of them in August, as well as the county and the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Rural Planning Organization. This is just an informational item. We hope to get local adoptions in early 2023. Topics we'll cover today is what is a CTP? Appreciate that, David. Pitt County CTP recommendations, and then our next steps and overall schedule. So what is a CTP? It stands for Comprehensive Transportation Plan. It's a long-range plan. We're going all the way to the year 2045 in this one. It's multimodal, so we go over highway, bikes, pedestrians, public transit, and rail. We developed this cooperatively among local stakeholders, businesses, residents, like I said, the Greenville MPO, the Mideast RPO, the county, as well as the municipalities and NCDOT. The reason I have my job is NC General Statute 13666.2, and that's what we're trying to meet by doing this comprehensive transportation plan. More about what a CTP is: it incorporates land use plans, community and statewide goals. These recommendations don't have any money attached, but it is a needs list, so we hope to attach money to it in the future. But the first step to every project, road, bike, ped, is figuring out what is needed first. So that's our whole goal with the CTP list of needs. This is just a visual of what I just said. We're determining the need all the way at the top. This is the very first step in making anything a reality. And then we score these needs because there's not enough money to meet everyone's needs. We fund the most needed needs. That's the prioritization and funding step. After that, we make sure we don't ruin the environment, other people's homes as much as we can, as much as we can. And then after we build it, we got to maintain it. So going into this CTP specifically, overall, this is a draft right now, but right now we have 94 highway recommendations and 157 bike and ped recommendations. Farmville specifically, you can find those recommendations on sheet 2 of 4. That's 4, 5, 11, 12, 80, 93. And the bike and ped recs are on sheet 4B of 4. If anybody ever wants to look at the details, they're also on the website, tinyurl.com/PittCTP. And then just to dive into those a little more visually, these are the highway recs for the Farmville area. The yellow you see there is other. So on the right is the legend. The yellow for 4, for example, is for flood resilience. So just to get that resilience to flooding more improved for that. Number 5 is the blue line you see there on 264. As you all may know, it's the future interstate route. So getting that resilience up as well and upgrading that facility. The triangles you see there are improving the intersections, making them safer, trying to prevent deaths and crashes there. And I think that covers those. But if anybody has any questions on those, let me know. And then the next one is the bike and ped recommendations. This is a zoom in of Farmville. The skinny purple lines are existing sidewalk, and then the thick purple lines are where we have proposed sidewalks in the future. The brown lines are multi-use paths. We wrapped in some of your Farmville bicycle and pedestrian plans, so those should be wrapped in appropriately. But again, this is draft, so if anybody has any comments, we're still working on this. Feel free to let us know through email or whichever routes you prefer. And then this is just our next steps, public involvement. We will have public drop-in sessions in the future. We're gonna plan some, maybe 3 or 4 virtual as well as in-person, so we can get more comments from the public. And that's the website link. It'll also have the maps and survey there, as well as the survey that we hope to get a high participation out of. And then finally, the last step is early 2023. We hope to get this adopted, wrapped up. The minimum requirements, we hope you'll adopt your planning jurisdiction, but you can also endorse the rest of the plan outside of Farmville. Also optional is the public hearing. And after this adoption, for example, we'll go to all the municipalities, the county, and the MPO and RPO will endorse it, and then we'll be the last to adopt, hopefully. And just, that's a quick and easy presentation. That's our contact information. Ben Rogers with the county and me with NCDOT. I'll field any questions if y'all have it. I really appreciate your time.
Hold on just a second. David, you got anything you want to add to this as far as getting the word out and how we would want to approach this?
Well, I had one comment and then maybe a couple of questions. Justin Oates, our former planning director, I think was involved in this from the beginning and had a lot of input, so I'm sure that Farmville's interest, transportation interests were taken into account, because I know he attended several of those meetings. The reference land use plans, I didn't know if you were aware, we just adopted a new land use plan. Okay. So do you have that, or do you need us to send you that?
Not right now, but it's good to know, and then we'll wrap it in as we can. It's just stating which land use plan is being used.
Okay, and then the bike ped plan, we have, I think it's fairly old. I think it's from 2013 or 14.
Yeah, I think I saw 2015, but you might be.
Yeah, it might be 15. I'm not sure. So you have access to that, or?
Thanks to Justin.
Okay. Just want to make sure. And then the last question as far as you mentioned adoption, is that, and you had public hearing up there, is that required? Is there a public hearing required for the local adoption?
No, it's optional.
Good. I'll start with Commissioner Elks. Questions?
Excuse me, I swallowed wrong. I don't have any questions at this time.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, but no, I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you, though, Mr. Gary.
Mr. Shacker? Dixon?
Good. Thank you.
Hobbs?
No questions, thank you for the update.
The only thing I have is a directive. I want to make sure that the folks in the community has a good understanding of what we're doing, so that they can understand where the sidewalks are going and so forth and so on, and how we get that word out. Is your newspaper article start this month or next month?
It'll be later this month.
Okay, maybe we can use that space to do that and let it be available or whatever.
How far along is this plan?
So the last step is public drop-ins, and then incorporating those comments, and then hopefully adoption. So we're probably 80% done, I'd say.
Sir, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming
Thank you,
forward.
Mayor Moore. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
I got some paper surveys I'll drop off with Amy.
Please.
That sounds good? Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item we got is,
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I neglected to do something under my comments that I really, it's a good thing. I just wanted to announce very quickly, if
Okay.
you don't mind. I know it's going out of order. It's my fault. Diane told me about something earlier today, and I lost track of it. So I had her send it to me again. Just wanted to announce that in the Babe Ruth tournament, I guess, World Series, we've got two baseball players, Trey Williford and Brett Cash, who are on one of the Farmville Babe Ruth teams, supported, sponsored by Parks and Rec and here in Farmville. And they were picked for the Greenville Babe Ruth All-Star team and were played a part in beating the Sarasota, Florida team 5-1 to win the Southeast Regional. And they will be playing in the World Series, which begins August 11th through August 21st in Stafford, Virginia, to play against, I don't know, this Sylacauga, Alabama. I'm going to mispronounce that name, that Alabama town. But anyway, it's a big deal. Just wanted to let you know that we've got some local folks right here in town, baseball players that are representing us very
is
well.
that Chillicothe you were trying to say?
Yes, I'll take your word for it. I don't know. I've never heard of
Thank
it.
you, that's good to know. That's great, and Diane, I hope we get some good emails on that and some good press and be excited.
Can you ask him to repeat the two names, please?
Trey Williford and
Cash.
Brett Cash.
Brett Cash, right.
Okay.
Sorry for,
Can we go now? Jamie Markham, are you here? Come on down, introduce yourself for the record. Name and address, and that'll be sufficient for us tonight.
So I'm Jamie Markham. My address is 4393 West Church Street here in Farmville.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. So first, I just want to start out by saying thank you guys so much for allowing me to come and speak with y'all tonight. I really appreciate it. I want to give a special thanks to Ms. Brenda Elks for meeting with me, having conversations with myself and others about the feral cat population that we have here around Farmville. I actually presented on this topic a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. I don't know, COVID kind of skews my time frame. But I wanted to come again tonight and have more of a formal type of request for the town of Farmville to consider. And my formal request is going to consist of asking the town of Farmville for $2,000 in an effort to help with spay and neutering, or TNR, trap and release, feral cats around the town of Farmville. As you guys know, we do have an issue. I don't have to tell you guys that. All you have to do is drive around a couple blocks and you are sure to come across some cats. Now, before I launch into what I'm thinking this might could look like, I do want to talk about just super quick the justification, or give you guys a little bit of perspective on how $2,000 in funding could help make a positive impact on the feral cat population. So, if we were to spay just one feral cat, for instance, one female cat, it really could have a positive impact. As an FYI, female cats, they can actually give birth at the age of 4 months. They can have approximately 3 litters within a year, and they have an average of 4 kittens within each litter. So if you guys do the math, that's 12 kittens per year, right? And so if we spay that one female cat, then we can prevent the birth of 12 additional kittens. On the flip side of that, if we do not spay just that one female cat, then, and she produces those 12 kittens, and then none of her kittens are spayed or neutered, and then they have kittens, then what we end up with is the original mama cat. We end up with her kittens, along with the offspring from her kittens, and then that gives us about 35 to 40 additional cats just within 1 year. And we really don't have the resources for 35 to 40 cats within just 1 year. And again, that's just one female cat. Myself, I actually moved to Farmville just under 5 years ago. I absolutely love it here. And about a year or two, maybe 3, I started to TNR on my own. It was just something I saw that needed to be done, so I took it upon myself to do that. In the time that I started to do that, I have actually spayed and neutered over 50 cats myself. And so I feel like, just kind of doing quick math, I've actually helped to prevent the birth of over 1,000 unwanted kittens. And I feel like with the $2,000 from the town, depending on which route we go, as far as like which vet office we go to, then anywhere from 50 to 100 cats could be fixed. That in turn is going to result in preventing the birth of over 2,000 unwanted kittens. I actually do have some thoughts on what this program, and I use that term kind of loosely, what that could look like. But before I launch into that, I want to see what sort of like thoughts, comments, questions you guys have.
David Hodgkins is our town manager.
Yes.
When money's involved, he becomes Mr. Hodgkins.
Hello, Mr. Hodgkins. You look very nice tonight, if I do say so
David,
myself.
we've been down this road, and what action can we actually take here? What can I present to the board as far as moving on this?
Well, I mean, you fund other groups or efforts each year. Normally it is around budget time. You know, they have presentations from, you know, the EMS and
Right.
schools and things like that. This is a little bit different situation. I mean, this board allocates money, you know, if they see a need through the year. Now, we don't have anything budgeted per se, but you're not talking about a tremendous amount of money within our budget. We can do it if that's what you're.
That's what I was.
Okay.
That sounds like a yes to me.
And so can the board act on, the reason I ask you
Sure.
is because public hearings can have a lot of impact on where we go and what we do.
Of course.
And so this is something the board can take under advisement now and move on now, or is this something that we've heard, Jamie, we thank you, and now this is something we put on the agenda for later? Or where's our research on this?
Well, I would certainly want, if I were you, I would want more of a plan, like something in writing. Just, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but you know, how you plan to spend the money specifically, who you're going to seek out to do the procedures, how much each procedure costs. I mean, some of this, I've talked to Brenda a little bit, and I think we've talked before, maybe through email and on the phone. But just, I would say that if the board wants to do something, you know, with this program, you could either do one or two things. You could authorize up to $2,000 pursuant to, you know, a plan or whatever, or you could say you're interested, make it contingent on the plan, and maybe take action at the August 29th.
How many cats will be born between now and the last Monday in August?
How many cats are going to be born? Well, I did not bring my crystal ball, but quite a few.
Would you be okay if I asked the board to let you give us kind of a financial breakdown of where this is going to go?
Sure, and I can actually give you.
So that we're able to discuss it. If somebody asks us, then we can say, this is the end result, this is what we're expecting for $2,000. If we see the positive results, then next year when we come to the budget meeting, it's going to be very easy to say, this is what we got for this, and we can build it back into the budget. Does that sound like something you'd be willing to go along with?
That definitely does, and I can actually give you guys 3 different proposals tonight, just verbally, as well as follow up in writing, or simply get it to you in writing, whichever you prefer.
I would like to have it in writing. I think that would be better. I think so. Brenda, you got anything you want to add to this?
You don't want me to start, do you?
Well,
Because I have a lot to add
was
to
reluctant
it.
to call on you, but I
Fir-
felt like it was the thing to do.
Yes, first of all, I applaud Jamie and I applaud Tammy because they live it. They go out, Jamie has done a tremendous amount. I personally have donated money and I'm doing it on a monthly basis now to Jamie to help get some cats neutered. We also have talked to the Pet Food Pantry. They're going to neuter or spay 1 cat per month for us, which is a big deal too. But my thing about it is I've had phone calls from residents that have come home and there's 8 or 9 feral cats in their yard. One person's freezer is on her back deck. The cats got behind it because it was warm, unplugged her freezer. She didn't have a clue and she lost everything in it. There's lots of issues about that. The other good thing about this is not only will these cats, I mean, we know the rescue squad loves their cats. You know, they've all been spayed and neutered by individuals throughout the community, and they like them for the pet control. But these animals will also be given their rabies shot, and that's a big deal too, because you know, Kinston's had active rabies in their community, and so it's, you know, we've been very lucky, but it's a big deal. I believe in this. I personally am pushing for this because when you look at one whole litter of kittens, by the time it's all said and done, having 3 or 4 more hundred litters of kittens, and it just continues on and on and on. And I'm a big advocate for us taking this on. Now
Okay.
I'll hush.
This is the option you've given me.
Okay.
I can call for a motion that we do the 2,000 tonight, then I can call for a substitute motion that we wait until August. Right, David?
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that being said, hold on there, Jamie, we're getting. Is there a motion that we grant the $2,000?
May I ask a couple more questions?
Yeah, I want you to, but hold on just a second. That's where we're gonna go with this, okay? But before I get to all that, I want you to lay out those 3 verbal things.
Sure.
So that can be included if a motion comes to that, okay? And if it comes to the end of August motion, then we'll get them in writing, okay? And then when you finish with those, Bert has some questions for you, okay? Fair enough? All right, let's go.
So if I were to talk to them, or talk about them in order of, in my opinion, kind of least desirable to most desirable, option number 1 would be to set up the $2,000 in an account with a vet. The one I would suggest is Animal Care off of 14th Street, and that's just because that's the vet that I've used for 20 years now. I would say on average, it costs, give or take, right around $100 to spay or neuter a cat. So if you do the math, then that's only 20 cats that can be fixed. That's option 1. Option 2 is to set up an account with Spay Today. At Spay Today, it costs $40 to have a feral cat fixed. So you do the math on that, that's what, 50 cats that can be fixed. Option 3 is the Pitt County Animal Services sells vouchers for $20. The $20 covers the cost of the spay or neutering as well as the rabies vaccination. So if you do the math on that, that's 100 cats that can be fixed. I personally would suggest going with option 3, trying to get vouchers from Pitt County Animal Services because you get the bigger bang for your buck. There are some pros and cons with that. The pros I've already stated. The cons with that is individual people have to purchase those vouchers. That's actually how I've been able to fix so many cats myself, either from myself or friends or family or people within the community purchasing the vouchers. So would have to kind of like figure out the logistics of that, which I wouldn't mind handling. I've been doing that for the past 2+ years now. But like I said, you get the bigger bang for your buck.
All right. Commissioner Smith.
So what do? Go around town and set your traps?
Yeah, some people refer to me as the Farmville Butcher, which I'm not offended by.
They'll call and say, I have all these feral cats. Some people are feeding those cats
Yeah.
and can't even afford to buy their own food.
Yes.
Is that not right, Tammy? Okay. We know one lady on East Pine Street
Yeah.
that was taking, she couldn't afford to buy cat food and their food and her food, so she was buying cat food.
Over her
So,
food.
over her own food. And the other thing about it, they'll call her or message her and say, hey, I have this cat, can you come and catch it? She will go, she'll set up a time to go. They catch the cat, take the cat to be done, the cat gets, and they tip their ears,
Yep,
correct? So
correct.
that you know that that cat is spayed, neutered, and is good. And then it's released back into the area from which it came,
Correct.
so.
Carry on, Bert.
And just yourself and maybe Tammy's helping you a little bit on the side?
Tammy and I have just recently connected. She's done some things on her own, and I've been kind of doing things on my own. But like Brenda stated, I will set the trap up myself, put some smelly sardines in there, it works. They're gross, but it works. Catch the cat, take it back to my house for the night in the trap, and then take it to the vet the next morning, pick it up the evening, and then release it back later on that day.
Okay. Now, here's where we are. We can entertain a motion, or we can thank you for coming by. So at this point, is there a motion to be brought before the board?
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and fund her, do we need like an organization's name, like
Like
Markham's
a
Cat Catchers or
nonprofit.
something?
I don't believe so. Not operating under any
You're
sort
not
of
operating
nonprofit.
under anything at all, just Jamie Markham, the butcher of Farmville?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. I make a motion, I think it's good, and we do have a terrible feral cat problem. I think we are best suited to move as quickly as we can to take care of it. So I make a motion, we fund it.
Board, you've heard the motion by Commissioner Smith. Is there any discussion?
Jamie, I'm gonna vote for this, but I'd also like for you to come back at the end of August meeting with maybe a plan for pigeons. Like if you have a spay and neutering plan for pigeons. We'd consider that too. So.
Okay, well, I will see what I can come up with.
Now, this has really gotten complicated for me. Okay, there is a motion.
Cats, they may take care of the pigeons.
That's a good point.
Cats.
Yes.
We have a motion to fund the spay and neuter program for $2,000. And Jamie, we do something like this, I always ask for an after-action report. And seeing no
course.
discussion from the board, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. I look forward to your after-action report.
Thank you
for
guys
doing
so
this.
much.
Thank you so
I
much.
cannot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is items for consent. Board, you've had a chance to read the minutes. An ordinance to rescind the enacted speed limit of US 258 business between Park Street and a mile south. The request, you've read that from the DOT. Is there a motion to accept the items of consent?
Make that motion, we accept the item of consent.
Commissioner Smith has made a motion that we accept the items of consent. Commissioner Elks. Is there any discussion? All in favor of Commissioner Elks' motion, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Okay. Now, this brings us down to the items for discussion. And David, unless I'm reading this wrong, you're going to take us all the way through this, starting with item 5, which is report on the CDBG grant. Is that you, or is that Richard?
That is me.
Okay, sir.
Mike Barnett could not unfortunately be here tonight.
Okay.
But, so it is me. Okay. So in your packet, there's sort of a brief discussion about how we got to this point. If you recall, several years back, we got a grant, the CDBG NR, which is Neighborhood Revitalization Grant, which is was totally grant, no match required from the town. And it's split into two parts. One was accessibility issues, which is the work that's being done at the Arts Council. Then the other part was housing rehabilitation, and that's what we're talking about tonight. We started the process, COVID hit, it set everything back, and then we went through a process that was not as good as the state wanted us to go through, so we agreed to start over. All the while recognizing the people who had applied originally, which was just a few, and then open it up again to more folks to apply. And so we had, in your packet, there's actually a summary of the meeting we had back on the 14th of July with the committee. There is a committee that was appointed by the mayor. It is me, Commissioner Hobbs, and Commissioner Shackelford. We've had two meetings to discuss this with Mike Burnett, the latest one being literally this afternoon at 1 o'clock. So as part of that discussion, came up with various requirements, obviously income requirements, age requirements. We tried to be as inclusive as possible, so we were looking at different parts of town. Obviously we gave some priority, I think, at least indirectly to female-led households. We wanted to make sure that all the properties were owner-occupied, a clear title, no delinquent taxes, things like that. So anyway, so we advertised it twice, once back in April and then most recently in July. And the deadline was this past Friday for applications, got several applications. I passed out a sheet that lists the actual folks that we think we can fund, or we should be able to fund given the money, and utilizing these criteria. There's a list of people and their address on the sheet I handed out earlier this evening. And so the committee is recommending that the Board of Commissioners approve this list based on the committee's recommendation. So all of these folks meet the criteria that the federal program and the state program set up, plus some local things, because obviously we know the people, whereas someone sitting in Raleigh does not know the needs of the folks that applied. So.
Commissioner Hobbs, you sat on this committee, you would like to add anything?
No, I think he did a great job of recapping what has happened thus far.
Commissioner Shackford?
I think we covered it all yesterday.
Richard, since you're pitch hitting for Mike, anything you'd like to add? No. Good. Okay.
More substitute.
Okay. Board, what we ask for is approve the housing priority list and recommended by the Housing Select Committee, and authorize me as mayor to approve the minutes for this agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion that we approve this list of individuals and,
Okay. Commissioner Else has made the motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much for that, and for the effort that's been put into this. This means an awful lot
I think
for a
this is
lot of
great.
folks. This is a great thing, and I just don't have the words to express how much it means to me. And David, you and Commissioner Shackford and Commissioner Hobbs, thank you for your effort on that. And I've already called one individual, and they were extremely pleased to hear that. The next item is approval of residential participation agreement for the Bynum Farm subdivision. Town manager, you got this. Allison, welcome, Bynum. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. David, it's yours.
Okay. In case you don't know, I know all of you know Mr. Satterfield, but Allison Britt is also involved in development, so she's sitting beside Satterwhite, I'm sorry. Sorry, Bynum Satterwhite, excuse me. Anyway, okay, so this was a fairly lengthy process. We have an existing policy that the board adopted back in 2000 called Residential Subdivision Participation Policy. It allows for the town to consider participating in the cost of various expenses, namely infrastructure in new subdivisions, single-family subdivisions in this case. So this board has not done one since Downton's Cove. It was originally approved in 2008 and then reapproved back in 2017, I believe, because it had been so long since the earlier plan had been approved. So the proposed policy is in your packet, and we made some changes to the policy that was on the books because things are a lot different in Farmville today than they are or were back in 2000. There was no development really happening to speak of, apparently. And obviously we have a lot more interest in development in Farmville now. And so maybe we don't have to be as generous, maybe that's not the right word, but that we want to help good development, but we don't necessarily have to help maybe to the extent that we did back in 2000. So these folks were eager to do the development here. Obviously, Bynum owns the property. It's his whole family farm, and the Britts have been working with him to put together a plan for development. So we went back and forth. I think there's been 5 different iterations of this policy, went back and forth, and hopefully didn't beat them up too much during the way. And it was nothing personal, but I advocate for you guys, so I try to be. Some of you recognize I can be cheap at times. So anyway, this is a policy that I felt was reasonable, and Mr. Satterwhite and the Brits also felt or they could live with, and it was reasonable. Not everybody gets everything they wanted, but it's a reasonable proposal. It offers them some assistance in developing the property, but also gets us a high-quality development and additional utility revenue and tax base, and expands our corporate boundaries because they would petition for annexation. So,
Commissioner Dixon has a concern. He and I discussed this earlier. I'm going to yield to him to let him bring it to your attention. Mr. Dixon.
And I talked to Bynum about this earlier today, and I think we're all on the same page. But the policy as presented address single-family and multifamily developments, and I like 99.5% of the policy, but I'd rather the multifamily development part not be in there, where I think we should really focus on partnering with developers on single-family developments. And I think that doesn't affect your plan at all. And I just ask you guys to consider the change. And you guys have spent so much time, I think, work kind of getting this policy to this point, and I appreciate that, and I hate to come in at the last hour and make a suggestion, but I appreciate your consideration.
David, if I entertain a motion, it would require that it would say we drop the term multi-unit, correct?
yes,
That's
yeah,
it.
I think the motion should reflect that. There's
Okay.
one other item related to that too that I've been looking through this afternoon. Under policy conditions, the 5th bullet point, it says the town will pay equal payments for each house. And it says, or cluster of housing units under the same roof, that is multi-unit development. So if the part reference to multifamily is stricken, that to be consistent, that language, or cluster of housing units under the same roof structure, multi-unit development, should also be stricken because it's irrelevant.
So we'll be good with the motion at that point now?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Dixon, I'm going to ask you to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we adopt the revised residential development participation policy with the changes we've discussed in the last few minutes.
Okay, Board, you've heard the motion. Is any discussion? Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Can I have the privilege of reading this line here, if you don't mind? David, Board. The developer agrees to rebate the town of Farmville $2,000 for each housing unit to help with emergency response capabilities. And that is quite admirable of you folks, and I appreciate that. Building a new fire department and 150 houses going up. There's only a few here, but I'm gonna call for applause right now because I thank y'all for that. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight. We look forward to working with you. Your grandma will be proud.
Very proud.
That brings us over to,
Mayor, just one thing as clarification, of course, these folks know.
Yes.
But for they're gonna have to submit, go through the planning board
Right.
and everything for the usual subdivision plat approval, so just wanna say.
Frank, you're aware of that, so you're
Go
good?
back.
Right, okay. Moving on to item number 7. David, I think you got this one also.
Okay, I'm gonna start out and then I'm gonna bring in my assistant, much more knowledgeable assistant, Mr. Moore, here in a minute. Okay, so the state has a program, or Department of Environmental Quality, or Division of Water Infrastructure, has a program whereby, I think it's called the Viable Utility Program, where the town can be designated as a so-called distressed community, and it opens up various opportunities for grants and things like that. How this came about is there's a various criteria that all of our utility, water and sewer utilities are scored on statewide. And certain things we don't control, like we have a small number of customers. And then there might be other things like, okay, that we have some control over, things like our debt, in water and sewer. But smaller towns tend to have more debt and have, per capita, and have higher rates because, they don't have as many customers as larger jurisdictions. And so We don't meet that requirement to be a distressed community, but we're getting close to that threshold. And so we have the option to either say, well, we don't want to participate, and potentially in future years, basically have it forced on us if they continue to score like they do. Or we can participate voluntarily, and that opens up funding from the state for training, and we have to do an assessment of our system and things like that, all the things that, you know, would really help. And also, we get put into a pot of, instead of competing with people like Greenville Utilities Commission and City of Raleigh and all these big jurisdictions, we compete against people who are more like us, jurisdictions more like us. And we just had a neighboring community just last meeting, I noticed in the paper, the town of Ayden is an identical situation that we're in with scoring and all that. And they recognize don't want to necessarily be just like Ayden, but another community about the same size elected unanimously to participate in the program for the same reasons I'm telling you, that it opens up a whole world of opportunities for new grants where we're not having to apply for, say, the Middle Creek, the Middle Swamp sewer line for how many years, 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row, because we were competing with, you know, Apex or somebody like that, and we didn't get funded. So this, I think, is a really good program and a good option. And so based on the program, we have to make a decision if we want to participate or not right away. So I'm recommending that we participate, and I think Mr. Moore is going to weigh in on it too.
The distressed designation was, you know, something the state came up with. What they saw was that their financial assistance programs, the funding was going heavily towards the communities that were larger, had larger staffing, had larger departments, and really could effectively skew the scoring in their favor because they had more resources to address some of the points. And so what the state came up with was that they needed to come up with a way to help make sure that the communities that were really most in need, that didn't have the advantages of these larger communities, to have direct set-asides of those funds, so that the smaller communities had a fair shot to get some of those grant funds that are available. And certainly this is coming off of the farm being awarded over $8 million, which is a really good thing for y'all, and it's impressive. But from this point in the future, that's how the state's going to do it. They're going to allocate a majority of their money into what they're going to refer to as distressed. And for them, it was easy to say, okay, we'll just make this a distressed pot, not realizing that somebody that reads the connotation distressed, all that means that there's some financial mismanagement, or that those communities are just in dire economic straits, and that's not true. It's just what the state has decided to term it as. So their evaluation criteria for being distressed is that you've got a customer base that's less than 10,000, that you have not done audits, and there are some communities that have not done audits that were automatically put into the distress category, and that there's a disproportionate amount of debt in your water and sewer enterprise fund relative to the size of your community. When the state first came out with the list, there were 97 communities on it. So this is not just a small number. This is really all across the state. And looking at the scoring criteria, the main factor that's put Farmville close to the threshold, is the debt ratio in your water and sewer enterprise fund, and that's primarily related to the alternative water supply, where the town had to assume debt to develop alternative water supply to meet the Central Coastal Plain capacity use area rules. And that was something that, you didn't want to do it, you were forced to do it by the state. So it's kind of an unfunded mandate that put the town in a position where you pretty much had to go out and develop and that's $7 million of revenue bond debt that was placed on the town to pay for that infrastructure. And that's what put a lot of these other communities in that same boat. It was primarily that Central Coastal Plain rule that required communities to assume debt. So there's nothing that the town has done financially management-wise, to put yourself in a distressed position.
Can you repeat that loud, please?
There's nothing that this town board or this staff has done financial management-wise to put yourselves in a distressed category from general description. What was done, you had to do, or you would have been fined. So it was really beyond y'all's control. The state is inviting, kind of requiring, but they're inviting the town to consider to be requests to be put on that distress designation. They gave you 3 options. One of them was that you can respond back to the state by the end of September as to why you shouldn't be considered as distressed, and you're not. That's a lose situation. The second thing is that you can perform all of the functions that you're going to be required to do as a distressed community, pay for it out of pocket, and get off the distress designation, or you can request to be classified as distressed, apply for grant money, pay for the documentation, and get off the further distressed designation in the future. This is a program that the state will look at every year. I think it is to the town's benefit just to participate in the policy. They will require that staffing participate in education programs, which I think it really, from a funding agency perspective and from the state's perspective, I think shows good faith on the town's part to participate in that process. It will be good. And the biggest thing is that it helps the town compete for grant money for infrastructure improvements, which is what we want. We want to, every time there's grant money available, we want to make sure that Farmville has priority, and that's what we're trying to do under this program, is to position the town to compete for grant money.
Questions of Richard or David?
So you're saying personally, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But if we did number 2, to me, that option that's putting us further into the hole, because we'll be spending our own funds that we're trying to do good with into that. So to me, option 3 is the total best for our community, for everything.
Yes.
And that's our big push, is what is best for our community.
And that's
Yes.
right.
And you were so appreciated for everything you do to try to find the funds, the grants, everything else. And I totally appreciate that. But I do want, to be honest, when I read that and I kept seeing distressed, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah.
But when you read the whole thing,
Yes.
and you go back and read it again, then you realize that it is not because they're things that should have been done that weren't, or that were done in a wrong way. It's that they're trying to look out for us.
That's correct.
Okay.
You're absolutely right, and it's just
Okay.
unfortunate that you have that, the negative that's tied to distress. Wouldn't it be a more appropriate phrasing? But they didn't think of that.
Right.
This is nothing.
Well, it's like when you look at when you're going to have a baby and you name your child something, you don't think about the fact of how it could be teased for the next 10 years, in elementary school, or that you put their initials something and everybody's monogramming it, and it spells pig or something like that on it, So, personally, I think this is I think it's a no-brainer for us.
Yes.
And I appreciate you explaining it the way you've done, because it is very self-explanatory by listening to what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
I am sure that we will have to address it quite a bit.
Oh, I'm sure we will
because of the
too.
verbiage.
That's
Anybody
why I
else have
asked him to
anything?
repeat
Anybody else have anything for it?
I sort of have the same thoughts and concerns as Brenda. I mean, I can see, headlines in the Farmville Enterprise if it existed. Farmville declared distressed town, and everybody running up here saying.
Explain this to
Yeah.
me, because, you know,
You'll get your opportunity on Facebook.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's something that we need to probably move ahead and do. I think they probably selected the bad name for it.
I agree 100%. But it's like Commissioner Elk said, they weren't really thinking about it. They were just trying to come up with a way to designate.
well, and it's probably for their own benefit,
Yeah.
in that when they're talking to their staff about it,
Yes.
they can say this, and they don't get it confused with something
Yes.
else.
Yes.
But like I said, I really believe this is a no-brainer for us.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, or motion?
I'll make a motion that we, tell me what I'm accepting, though. What are we going to, are we accepting the resolution?
Resolution.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we accept the resolution and proceed with the proper steps to take care of this.
Brenda's made a motion that we adopt the resolution request for distressed unit designation. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Richard, thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Rich.
That brings us down to item 8. Audience, we're going to have a closed session. You're welcome to hang around because there is a section after that where you may ask, have citizen comments. But at this particular point, I'm going to entertain a motion that the Board of Commissioners need to hold a closed session at the end of the regular meeting tonight. The purpose is to discuss a legal matter in pursuant of North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3. Is there a motion?
So maybe.
The board has considered that. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're in closed session. We'll take about 2 minutes here and we'll resume. Thank y'all for coming. Brian, thank you so much. Frank, thanks for coming by tonight. Glad you be a part of this. We're excited. Allison, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see y'all. See all you folks later. Thank you.